This horrific, now nationwide attack on Ukraine by Russia may have turned the world's attention and assistance to Eastern Europe. But the smart minds in security and intelligence are watching China very, very closely. Now, for Australia, it's ensured that for the next 2 months, right up to federal polling day, national security, our stance on China and Labor's stance on China and the safety of the Indo-Pacific will be near or at the top of debate and policy. You can be assured of that. It is no coincidence that the Prime Minister was delivering an address today for the Lowy Institute focusing on the impact of Russia's invasion and the repercussions on China's ambitions over Taiwan. In that speech, he spoke about the dangers for Australia, given this new arc of autocracy from Moscow to Beijing.
Australia is working with other countries to ensure that Putin's Russia pays the maximum possible economic price for this brutal war of aggression. This is important because we know there are powerful actors in our region who are watching closely, looking for signs of weakness and division within the West.
I'll unpack more of what the Prime Minister said today with Dennis Shanahan very shortly, but it's also no mistake that the war in Ukraine has taught us a very crucial lesson about preparedness. Here's the world trying to make up for lost time, trying to make up for their own ignorance over Russia and Putin, and secretly delivering military hardware into under siege Ukrainian cities. We're not hearing how difficult that is, but you can imagine how much it would be. We should never have underestimated Putin and could have provided the Ukrainians with all they needed many, many months ago. It is a lesson not lost on Defence Minister Peter Dutton. Now, watch what he said yesterday when asked about whether the West could forearm the threatened territory of Taiwan.
Well, I think we do whatever we can to deter China from acts of aggression in our region, David. Let's be very honest. And the question is, as it is in the Ukraine at the moment, if it's Taiwan, does it just stop there?
He goes on to talk about we will do whatever we can to ensure security in the Indo-Pacific, whatever we can. There are two immediate causes of action given the heightened fear that China could invade Taiwan as early as this year. Firstly, give the Taiwanese what they need to defend themselves, to at least prevent loss of life in the event of an invasion. Everything NATO is now trying to deliver to Ukraine. Some people might look at that and say, well, that's a provocation. Hold on a second. You don't think China is capable of doing exactly what Putin has done? Of course they are. And secondly, take the advice of one of the United States' most respected naval intelligence directors, former Captain James Fennell. Now, I spoke with Fennell last night on my own program on Sky News, and he's one of the most astute minds on China and the Pacific. He says we cannot be weak. And it is time for the United States and Australia to officially recognise Taiwan as a sovereign country. That AUKUS itself and the three nations included in that agreement would make a joint agreement to recognise Taiwan as a sovereign country.
I think it's entirely appropriate, and I would expand that and say we should ask the Quad members, which would include India, to do the same thing in Japan. And I think in the case of Japan, you certainly would get a likely partner. And I think India is very, very concerned as well. And because of our poor performance in Afghanistan and what we're doing in Ukraine, we're losing India and they're at risk of sliding out of the Quad. And so we need to reach out to the members and have the AUKUS and Quad speak up and say, we're recognizing that Taiwan is what it is, a sovereign and independent nation.
He is so right. Think about the strength in numbers that has been created since Putin went into Russia and the kind of strength we've created simply by issuing the strongest sanctions ever thrust upon Russia. That would be a sign of enormous strength. To declare Taiwan a sovereign nation, it would be an indication of how strong the AUKUS alliance is and how prepared it is to move on China. And it would put China on notice about having ambitions to expand in our region. Bear in mind, as Fennell said to me last night, China is using Russia's invasion into Ukraine as a test case. It's a drill as to what may occur if and when they took Taiwan?
What's happening in the Ukraine may adjust it a bit, but what it's doing is it's providing PLA planners and the Central Military Commission valuable lessons learned on what not to do when you conduct a military invasion like would occur against Taiwan. And
I'll ask a national security expert shortly about whether what's happening in Russia is encouraging China or making them think again. The facts are that in the past 12 months, the US has mishandled the exit from Afghanistan, while NATO has been called out not preparing for Ukraine for war. China is the next immediate challenge. We have to replace weakness and a lack of foresight with strength and preparedness. If only the United States had a leader capable of all that.